Hello, everybody. Neurotrauma Future Perspectives. I've got no disclosures to make in this presentation. Aim of this presentation is to know the magnitude of the problem of traumatic brain injury, the current status, identify the stumbling blocks, and future perspectives. Traumatic brain injury is more serious than the coronavirus. It is a silent epidemic. It is the most complex disease of the most complex organ. 20 head injuries with 4 deaths would have occurred by the end of this presentation. Head injury is the #1 killer in trauma. It accounts for 25% of the trauma deaths, 50% of all deaths from motor vehicle collisions, and around 2 lakh people are disabled. If you see the world trauma statistics of the last 25 years, one can see that injury tops the list, which is around 50 million. And in that, motor vehicle accidents, again, are on the cream. Where do we stand? The road incident death rates of 2017, with the color coding showing the darker color as the more number of deaths per lakh individual, shows that India is somewhere in the region of 20 to 22 deaths per lakh individuals, whereas a part of Central Africa has got the maximum number. Our statistics show that the commonest cause of head injury is motor vehicle accident. So it is evident that the current strategies are not enough in combating the scourge of traumatic brain injury. The head injury data in India shows that around 10 million cases of mild to severe TBI occur per year. And the data is published only on 20,000 patients in 27 years. Only 0.1% of the population suffering from head injury are analyzed and researched. Till date, there is no single approved drug for the head injury in spite of 30 clinical trials. The data is huge. For example, just the acquired neuroimaging data per published study is 20 GB. And the total data of the world as on date would be around 44 zettabytes. Statistics show that in India, 1 in 6 people suffering head injury die, whereas in US it is 1 in 200. Of the total deaths, 80% occur in the developing countries and 20% in the developed countries. But the data which is published is the opposite. That is 80% from the developed countries and 20% from the developing countries. So we do not have our own guidelines. The high-income countries have reduced their mortality from 22% to 13% in the last 10 years, but our figures remain unchanged. So what's the challenge? The challenge is to collect maximum in a maximal structured format, preferably the electronic health record, analyze the data powered by machine learning, fuzzy logic, and artificial intelligence, and implement the findings in precise and personalized care of traumatic brain injury patients. There are various data collection initiatives taken place along the world in Europe, US, and Canada. This is a chart which shows all the various trials which are under progress. Most of them are government funded. The one circled has got the maximum number of candidates, that is the Center TBI 5,400 and Creative around 7,000. Coupling this big data approach with established practices of management of TBI into highly integrated evidence-based patient care is the crux of the situation. The big data analytical approach shows that we need to collect the data. Maybe it is the past data, the present data, the real-time data. It is all given into a BDA platform which uses algorithms, machine learnings, and artificial intelligence. And this has a potential of application into all aspects of head injury with the ultimate aim of improving TBI outcomes in patients by improved protection, reduced mortality, improved long-term outcomes, and improved quality of life. Precision medicine is moving towards targeted therapy. It is the gene analysis, protein expression, physiological variables, environmental and lifestyle factors which allows uniqueness to each individual. And it provides for more effective and targeted therapy. The current status of genetics and head injury is only applicable for risk stratification. It includes genes which are markers for neuroinflammation, neural repair and plasticity, pre- and post-injury cognitive and neurobehavioral capacity. Some of the genetic modifiers for rehabilitation which have been studied showed that there are certain genes which mark for improved 6-month outcome, that is a Glasgow outcome score. There are certain genetic variations which lead an individual into higher risk for cerebral edema. And also there are certain genes which have associations with high risk of post-traumatic seizures. So now we are entering into an era of pharmacogenomics, which analyzes how the genetic makeup of an individual affects his or her response to the drugs. Therefore, one can tailor-make the drug as per the requirement and the genetic makeup of an individual. It offers an excellent opportunity to further precision medicine and decrease the heterogeneity of traumatic brain injury outcomes. Now, some of the genetics which have been studied include the HLA gene, which has got an association with phenytoin, which if taken gives an increased risk of subcutaneous allergic reaction. Whereas there are certain genes which help in the metabolism, which are directly related to the metabolism of post-traumatic depressants. So they also have to be tailored. The genetic drivers of treatment are in the pipeline. Most commonly are the ones, the N-acetylcysteine, BCC1, BCCG2, and glyburide. N-acetylcysteine and ABCC are concerned with the oxidants, whereas glyburide is concerned with reduction in the cerebral edema. So the future workflow in a case of traumatic brain injury would focus on the pharmacogenomics and correction of the pre-injury factors, the host response, neural plasticity and repair, neurodegenerative mechanisms, and neurocognitive reserve. Neuromonitoring has to go beyond intracranial pressure monitoring. We have been monitoring the intracranial pressure, the cerebral perfusion pressure, the brain tissue oxygen monitoring, lactate pyruvate ratio, low blood glucose, but there are many more parameters which still remain to be uncovered. So the first stumbling block is we tend to make what is measurable as important. For example, you know about intracranial pressure, so we make it as important. What we need is to make what's important measurable rather than make what's measurable important. The second stumbling block in neurocritical care is that we attempt to treat a univariate by focusing on a single intervention to see its effect on an entity which is actually multivariate. We have been ignoring the complexity of neurotraumatic critical care status. For example, the decompressive craniectomy, which is guided only by the intracranial pressure, does not yield the desired results. Therefore, it has to be tackled as a multivariate entity. Current status of multimodality monitoring would look something like this, wherein we have got the various parameters being monitored, including the intracranial pressure. But the future monitoring is going to be artificial intelligence enabled. It is going to be a proactive monitoring, as we see in the Tesla car, which allows us to negotiate from the critical care bends of traumatic brain injury. The present knowledge about the internal milieu is by invasive monitoring, but the aim is for a proactive, minimally invasive, and more informative neuromonitoring. Various biomarkers come into the play, like acute biomarkers, subacute biomarkers, and chronic biomarkers, depending on the time from the head injury has taken place. But of this, as of now, only S100B holds some promise. People are also focusing on combining research, for example, MRI with genetics. We have fierce work going on in computational mapping, wherein various parts of the brain and the functions are being decoded. So what we can see is there is a shift from mechanical to biological surgery. Deployment of hybrid technologies, biological manipulation of the central nervous system, and incorporation of stem cell therapy, regenerative medicine, and immunological therapy, which will make most of the CNS disorders treatable by biological therapy. There has been a paradigm shift in the treatment philosophy, which initially started as sickness responsive therapy, going towards preventive therapy, and presently the focus is on preemptive and preventive therapy. So what's going to be the fate of neurotrauma in future? I think it's going to be the only field in neurosurgery probably requiring mechanical surgery. The conventional neurosurgery for brain tumors, for vascular anomalies and all that is going to be history, or maybe soon going to be defunct. Coming to the newer technologies which are being used in vogue, at the present we have 3D printing, which is coming up in a big way. Already many of the institutes have been using it, especially for craniovertebral anomalies. The future lies in 3D biofabrication, wherein the implants which have been made, they are biodegradable polymers or other materials, and they can straight away get integrated with the body's own tissues. So bioprinting, the future timeline, I would see that a project which started somewhere in 2011, following 2030, we would be able to make full organs. This is how the babies will be born in future. Of course, must take it with a pinch of salt. So the future of neurotrauma surgery is basically on hybrid technology, wherein there will be excision of damaged tissue, which will involve a mechanical surgery, which we do it at the moment. Subsequently, stem cell activation will be used to regrow the damaged or excised portion of the brain and spinal cord. That's called biological therapy, and prosthesis to complement or supplement the functions. Personalized CNS mapping. Regrowth will be guided by the CNS mapping containing encoded information specific for individuals, example the personality, which will be obtained as part of the routine screening surveys. Imaging advances include topological data analysis. The TDA is a type of machine intelligence that provides a way to easily visualize patient differences across the full spectrum of traumatic brain injury from concussion to coma. The histobehavioral network topology combines the histology with the imaging and the behavior. It is very interesting to note that even the studies which have been carried out as late as in 1994 and 95, those when subjected to machine learning have come up with fresh findings. For example, this data-driven exploration of the previous trial, that is the MESIS trial, which was done in 1994 to 95, now has come up with findings that perioperative hypertension predicts worse recovery for thoracic spinal cord injury patients. Imaging, the current status is we are able to detect, segment, quantify and differentiate different types of brain lesions up to 85 to 86%. The future of imaging will be prognosticate and guide the management in traumatic brain injuries. Nanotechnology is focusing at the cellular level, wherein to change the very genetic makeup so that the particular RNA proteins are being synthesized. But a lot of work needs to be done in this direction. So let me give you a glimpse into the future of traumatic brain injury in future, which is not very far. When an individual is born, the gene sequencing is done, stratification, prediction of disorders and disease which is likely to suffer in future is also noted, and the data is stored. Now this individual, if he suffers a traumatic brain injury, initial management would be history taking, clinical exam evaluation, biochemistry, advanced imaging, and acquisition of the genomic sequence data of this individual. Further, this data will be analyzed by a knowledge network. On the right side, I've shown you the knowledge network. This essentially consists of the data which has been previously acquired, the data which is currently being generated by this injured patient, and this entire data is fed into a knowledge network. And this knowledge network guides us towards a triage, diagnosis, treatment, prognosis, and the overall benefits of various treatment modalities. So this is what we call as personalized targeted therapy. Now this workflow model, which was proposed by me, has been published in one of the recent editions of Indian Journal of Neurotrauma. So the trauma surgery would consist of excision of the damaged tissue, which is basically mechanical surgery. Subsequently, the stem cell activation will be used to regrow the damaged or the excised portion of the brain and spinal cord, which we would call as biological therapy. And this will be supplemented by targeted pharmacotherapy, wherein depending on the pharmacogenomics, the genetic endowment of the individual, targeted therapy would be done. In addition, you would have non-biological engineering approaches which would supplement and complement the treatment modality. They fall broadly into three categories: neuromodulation, brain-machine interfaces, and neuroprosthetics. Neurorehabilitation would consist of neuromodulation, in which we have electrical, magnetic, and deep brain stimulation. These are various studies which have been carried out with some results, some improvement in the rehabilitation of the TBI patients. Neural processes would primarily consist of those which enhance or supplement sensory, motor, cognitive, and visual functions. We have the closed loop between machine and humans. This small video clip from DARPA will show this.
A volunteer, whose name is Nathan, underwent a surgery to have 2 microelectrode arrays placed in the sensory cortex. This is a region of the brain responsible for identifying tactile sensations such as pressure. Those electrodes were then connected by wires to a robotic hand and arm fitted with tactile sensors in its fingers. Index. Right. What you're seeing as the trials take place is that as the researcher applies light pressure to the robotic fingers, those physical sensations are converted into electrical signals that are fed directly back into Nathan's brain. Through this brain-machine interface, electrical signals are delivered as precise stimulation that his brain interprets as though his own fingers are being touched. Index. Index. Brain. Despite being blindfolded, Nathan can identify with nearly 100% accuracy which fingers on the robotic hand are being touched.
20 out of 20.
What does this mean for the future of neurotechnology? DARPA has previously shown that a brain interface can be used to direct the movements of a robotic arm. Now, with this new development of adding sensation by directly sending signals from the robotic hand back into the brain, we have closed the loop between human and machine.
So if you take the timeline of these newer technologies, body 1 would be the pre-prosthesis era, wherein the natural elements of the body were used to repair and regrow and help in treatment of traumatic brain injury. The body 2 consists of artificial prosthesis, whereas the body 3 is, which we are going to see in the future, is going to be biofabricated, biointegrated, personalized precision prosthesis. The biggest advantage of these biofabrication prostheses are it fits, it's yours, and it is alive. So the neurotrauma management of future is basically a convergence of the physical, digital, and the biological worlds. Biological enhancement appears to be the way ahead, which is enhancing the physical, mental, and cognitive capabilities. Are we aiming for immortality? Probably yes. Biomedical enhancement basically is an attempt to make normal humans to superhumans. The burning question that comes to one's mind is, will artificial intelligence and robo make us extinct? Healthcare needs a fine balance between knowledge, wisdom, creativity, and empathy. Researchers have found that physicians' sentiment about the patient is a dimension of decision-making that machines cannot gauge. Robots with AI versus doctors. Arriving at a diagnosis and treating a patient is a non-linear process. It requires creativity and problem-solving skills and intuition that algorithms and robots can never have. Artificial intelligence can analyze huge, complex data. Its final interpretation will always be within the realm of humans. So my take as on date is, these newer technologies are here to help us, assist us, and empower the neurosurgeon, but not to compete in deliverance of healthcare. Research is going on to employ genomic technologies to enhance medical status and improve treatment outcomes. This kind of research can impact offensive or defensive military operations. Which direction it takes remains to be seen. With all this dual technology, there's a huge responsibility. We need to ensure ethical research so that humanity gets tangible benefits. Unraveling the mystery of traumatic brain injury must go back to history, when Napoleon Bonaparte once said, war is 90% information. In present day context, gathering and collating the collected TBI data remains the key to solve the mystery of traumatic brain injury. Head injury management appears to be a data problem in the developing countries. We need good data because in God we trust, all others must bring data. To win over head injury, we need to change our attitude. All birds find shelter during a rain, but eagles avoid rain by flying above the clouds. Problems are common, but attitudes make the difference. So said a great personality called the late Abdul Kalam. Thank you. I am done.